Good evening, everybody. This is Brad Hesselberg again with another episode of the Market Forge. This is where we track the infrastructure of the future economy from crypto, AI, energy, automation, and anything beyond that, and translate it into clear market positioning. Look, every week we break down liquidity, capital flows, and the signals that actually drive markets so you can understand not just what's happening, but what's coming next. So let's get into this week's show. Before we get started, just a friendly reminder this is not financial advice, it's for entertainment purposes only. I am a financial advisor. I have information about my offerings in the link below called the Market Forge. I'll include include a couple other links in there as well. But let's get into it. So the first thing that we want to take a look at is liquidity, right? We always want to start out with liquidity. We want to understand um, where the money's flowing, and if it's flowing in, then I want to identify where it's going into. If it's flowing out, then I mean usually that means it's going to cash. So that one's pretty easy to interpret. So first we start out with USDT dominance. So this is it tells you if more people are in stable coins or if people are getting out of their stable coins and buying into crypto assets. So I mean, we've had a really strong run up here in the last few weeks, months. And, obviously we've seen it in Bitcoin, we've seen it in crypto. But what this is telling us, if we look at a couple of these indicators, is that maybe it looks like people are going to start selling off their stables and maybe going into cryptocurrencies. So we're going to go over that. So, few things. We're we're in these liquidity zones. We spiked up. These are long-term liquidity zones. These are previous all-time highs for USDT dominance. So either it's going to find resistance here or it's going to grind higher into support. Key areas. But what our indicators are telling us is that we might be looking to come down. This might be kind of flattening out and turning over to the downside. But there's some uncertainty in it as well. So we're still above the volume weighted moving averages, which is bullish. We did close below the weekly, which would be your first initial step to the downside. We're above the Ichimoku clouds, but they are rounding out maybe a little bit. Want to turn to the downside. Volume's coming down. Momentum waves are coming down. Money flow is going. Looks like it wants to roll over and go out. Your RSI looks bottoming out weak. We are holding above the RSI, and that's why it still looks bullish. But you know, all it takes is for this to kind of round out, and then its momentum is leaving USDT and going into cryptocurrencies. So that is what leads us to our next chart. Still in liquidity zone. This is the dollar index. This is a dollar weighted against other currencies. You don't need to know really the specifics of it. Basics are if it's moving to the downside, it tends to be good for risk assets. If it's moving to the upside, then you want to be in more of a defensive position. Now, this one is a little bit of a mixed signal, but it does look mostly bearish. We're below the Ichimoku cloud. We're below this liquidity pocket. Weak bounce. Momentum waves don't look particularly strong. Even your RSIs, they're separating, but it almost looks like they want to turn to the downside. This looks bearish, which means that risk assets should look bullish, and they do. And we're going to get into the details on that one for sure. Your stochastic RSIs, now they're near all-time highs, which isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it shows strength in the asset, but when we look at our RSIs, we're just above 50, but it does look like it's turning over. We found support down here in the at 28, so it doesn't look all bad, but it mostly looks bearish. So we're going to be watching this very closely. But if crypto risk is any indication of overall risk, which it is, the likelihood that this wants to roll over feels pretty good. We're below the Ichimoku. Just mostly bearish signs from our indicators. Now these are the daily. This is a little bit more long term, right? So like, does that mean something couldn't happen over the weekend? Something couldn't happen with all this conflict? Yeah, I can't tell you that. But from a technical standpoint, it looks good. It looks good. Or I mean, it looks good for risk assets. The dollar doesn't look good. And then we look at Bitcoin. So we looked at USDT dominance. Now we look at Bitcoin, and it doesn't. It looks, parts of it look bearish on the indicators. Parts of it look bullish. But because USDT dominance looks weak and the Dixie looks weak, that means that what I'm watching for is a reversal. So we're over the weekly VWAP on Bitcoin. That's really kind of the first mini boss that we got to get over before we can find support. We got a ways to go before we can get to the Ichimoku cloud. We're still below these volume weighted averages, but your momentum is turning to the upside. It looks like the selling wants to end. It's really flattened out here. So you would be looking at potential for a reversal. What is particularly strong, and like we said with the dollar, sometimes stochastic RSI can be bullish, sometimes it's bearish when it's up here. Now this looks like it wants a stronger, it has momentum, it wants to move to the upside aggressively. Doesn't mean it can't come down a little bit, but what you're watching for, is it going to hit the 50 and then come back up, or do we set in a higher low? That would look good. And with the RSIs, it makes you think that that's not out of the realm of the possibility. It's forming an uptrend. We bounced off at 30. We're bouncing off 33. We're following the yellow line. If this can bounce and find support at 37 on the RSI, that's bullish. That's good. That would be a confirmation for us that the selling has finally rolled over and buyers are looking to get back in. BTC dominance. This is an interesting one. We're below the Ichimoku. We're finding support on these VWAPs. This doesn't look like a strong move from the stochastic RSI. It's kind of flat. I mean, it is uptrending. It does want to go higher, but your RSI is below 50, and it doesn't look strong. It's trading sideways. Not the RSI is what really tells us what we're looking for, and we're below the 50, and it doesn't look bullish. So this doesn't look bullish. Overall, BTC dominance does not look bullish. And what does that mean? That means that in this period, altcoins are more likely to outperform Bitcoin. Alt season, if you will. I'm not going to call it, refer to your traditional alt season, but it's the period where alts tend to outperform BTC. So our indicators and charts are suggesting that could be on the horizon. So something to definitely be watching for. I'd like to point out that the news is quite bearish right now. Crypto is at all-time lows. I mean, not all-time lows, but on the fear and greed index, all-time lows, pretty much. Looks terrible. Nasdaq has looked really bad for a couple of months. All the software FUD is pretty aggressive. Then you had Blue Owl talking about, the Blue Owl, the private equity firm, blocking out client funds, looking real bad. Iraq stuff going on overseas, and just general fear, I feel, in a lot of sectors. But the charts say otherwise, which is really interesting. And that's why we can't just listen to headlines and assume that, what we read and what we see is all of it. We have to have our own analysis. We have to have our own understanding of what's going on. So here's our crypto market market cap. So this is top 3, or total market cap. So we take out BTC and ETH. So this is all the other altcoins. Stable coins don't count. All the other altcoins. So Solana, Sui, ENA, XRP. So here, again, we're seeing the same structure. We're seeing some higher lows. We want to keep retesting the month to date VWAP. We're finding support on the weekly. That shows bullishness. Now, again, we're still below the Ichimoku clouds, so that doesn't look good. Right, we're still in that phase. We got to get back up here. But, some of the indicators are telling you that that's not out of the question. Like that's realistic to actually start looking for the signs that this wants to move higher. Stochastic RSI, uptrend near the top, maybe showing strength. Again, our RSI is going to tell us really where the strength is. We got to get above this purple line. We got to get above this purple line and bounce or continue to grind higher here. So that part of it looks bullish. It looks like liquidity wants to return, but it also still looks flat, right? So it's like the risk hasn't quite gotten to crypto yet. But as we go into our more AI focused sector, I mean it's all AI focused in some way, but the Nvidias, the SMH, those two. This is going to give us a broader range or a broader understanding of where risk is going. Now, if we look at Nvidia, truth be told, it looks very bullish to me. It's gotten back into the Ichimoku cloud. It's stayed in there. It is bouncing around inside of here. You can see that it's finding resistance near the top, but we're above all these moving averages. We're closing and staying above them, showing real strength there. Your RSIs on Market Cipher separating, want to go higher. Momentum waves want to go higher. The selling has stopped and it's curling to the upside. RSIs look strong, hanging out here near the top and bouncing, right here at the 36 on the RSI. Very bullish. Looks really good. If we had another bounce, around 47, 48, right in that 50 range, wanted to go higher. This tells me that risk wants to return back to this market. We've seen the Nasdaq cooling off for a couple months, looking bearish. I mean, it really was. But some of the stuff from the close on Friday is making it look like it wants to grind higher. Here's our semiconductors. Like these have just not really cooled off that much. You had a pretty decent move there. Didn't even get back to the Ichimoku clouds. Stayed above the previous high that it broke out of. Found really good support there. I mean, this just looks really powerful. Money flow continues to show aggressive to the green side. RSIs stay high. Opening up again near the top. I mean, this just looks. The semiconductors are so strong in this space. Like the value is just higher. It just goes higher. Bounced off, had a bit of a cool off, bounced off 45, very bullish. Got above the yellow line again, continues to grind higher. I mean, this just all looks very, very good. This sector looks very good. I mean, our whole everything that we talk about on this channel all looks very strong. Like it really wants to get going here in 2026. So here we have copper. I saw something earlier today calling it Dr. Copper. If copper is moving to the upside and it looks strong, that means that the economy is likely strong. Manufacturing is getting stronger. We're getting back to July 2025 highs, and we're just consolidating there, which looks really strong. We've come in, looks like we're finding support inside the Ichimoku cloud. Now we did find some resistance here on the monthly VWAP, so that'll be something to pay attention to. But if we can stay here near the top of the Ichimoku cloud, very bullish, looking very strong. Clearly wants to, momentum is to the upside. You could even draw out you know, like a little, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good looking bull flag to me. Grinding lower to the downside, wanting to go higher. Yeah, I can see it. RSI's opening up. Looks like they want to curl to the upside. Money flow looking strong. You got yourself a trigger wave, or well, yeah, it's not necessarily a trigger wave, but momentum to the upside, looking strong. You know, your RSIs were trending down, but you know, if you can just get a little dip down and higher, you're looking at, you know, high, maybe the change of a trend, and the RSI looks like it wants to find support here at 50, which would be really, really bullish. Copper looks strong to me. This entire sector looks strong to me. Um, Consolation, we were talking about this last week. We got this pretty big wedge that it's been, or channel it's been grinding higher inside of. Looks like it had found support down here, and that's what it looks like it ultimately ended up doing. You know, we're finding a little bit of trouble here at the VWAPs. Wouldn't be surprised if maybe we come back and test the 9 and turn that into support and then grind higher. And you can see with the 9 flattened out. Now it looks like it wants to curl to the upside. This looks good. If we can get above those VWAPs, it's going to look real nice. Momentum waves to the upside. Red cooling off. Looks like it wants to flip green. Stochastic RSI's high, but nice move to the upside and holding. And it looks like our regular RSI wants to hold at 50. Really, these charts look great. Does that mean that it's going to tell us the future? No. But what we can do is just get an understanding of how everything looks. And, you know, based off multiple indicators, this is all looking very strong, which tells us that this build out will likely continue to the upside, which seems crazy because this market just continues to want to grind higher, to absorb more and more liquidity. And it just looks like it doesn't have much interest in stopping. So here's our uranium miners. We watch this obviously as you know, a nuclear um, something to keep our eyes on with regards to nuclear energy. Tends to be more risk on. I mean, these are miners. You know, gold and silver miners tend to be pretty risk on. Like think about uranium. But same exact thing over and over and over again. We find the VWAP as support. We're well above the Ichimoku clouds. Um, we're well above our liquidity base. In fact, we found nice support. Tap here, and go. Looking really nice. Your momentum waves want to go higher. Your cash flow wants to go higher. Your RSIs are starting to open up and go look like they want to go higher. Your stochastic is bottoming out, momentum to the upside. And your RSI is bouncing in the 50 range, 2 taps above the yellow line. Again, everything is looking really good. It feels like we're looking at the right place. We're in the right place to be when it comes to this build out. You know, the thesis is strong right now. Bots. So this is robotics and automation. Something that I don't. I mean, I do see it in my Twitter feeds and things, but it's not talked about at the same level as semiconductors, energy lately. But this is a huge part of it too. And what I love about this chart, and we mapped this out before, this goes all the way back to previous all-time high. So we're near. I mean, you could barely count this. You know, it stayed above this for what, a day. You know, you're right in the channel to get back to those all-time highs, and it looks bullish. It looks like it wants to get there above the VWAPs. Our 9 EMA is aggressively moving to the upside. Well above the Ichimoku cloud. I mean, we came back and tested. We didn't even touch it and just went higher. RSIs look strong on both stochastic and our market cipher RSIs. Looks like it still wants to continue to the upside. Usually when these come together and start turning red, it can show some selling pressure. but not always. Sometimes it just continues to go higher, and it kind of looks like that's what it wants to do with our money waves. Um, and the RSI, really nice bounce off of our, kind of 36 area and higher and above the yellow. Again, everything just looks stronger and stronger. It feels like the fear is dissipating, liquidity is coming back in. Um, these markets look postured to get going. The Nasdaq's one that I've been watching very, very closely for very good reason. I mean, it's tied very specifically to the tech sector. I mean, it is the tech sector. This gives us our bearing on how things are looking, and it's given us a really good picture of what's been going on. I mean, we saw software sell off. Tech has looked rough. You've had the Dow Jones and the small caps picking up, and the Nasdaq has just lagged. Well, that we might be nearing the end of that potentially. Good, we're seeing good things here. Mostly to start, I'm watching the close above the monthly VWAP, the close inside the Ichimoku cloud, momentum waves turning to the upside, RSIs turning to the upside, opening up. Stochastics look like they're ready to go higher. We had a higher high, so you might be developing a trend here. And then we had a really nice bounce off the 35, 36 range, higher high, or not higher high, higher low, getting above the yellow. Nasdaq looks like it wants to return, like it wants to get going again, which I didn't even think. I thought it looked terrible. And it still does. In some ways, it does. I mean, it's gotta get up here before it starts really looking strong, but it's starting to look like it wants to go higher. And then this is our quantum. This is what we look at for quantum, IONQ. This is the weakest chart that we have. Quantum is like the furthest out the risk tolerance. I mean, it's in crypto realm, just because it's seen as so far off and something that's going to take years to really get going. So yeah, it makes sense why this one tends to look the worst. Could be bottoming out. Some of this stuff does look relatively not really. I mean, you have some strength in the stochastic, but well below the Ichimoku cloud, well below our liquidity pocket, below all the volume weighted averages. Your volume's down. Your RSIs are on Market Cipher flattening out. Doesn't look strong. Looks like it wants to continue to the downside. Even your momentum waves are flat and don't look very good. This red seems to be wanting to sell off, but still, that's kind of flattening out. And this is where your stochastics look bearish because yeah, it's moved to the upside, but it hasn't done anything. Like it's done nothing. And your regular RSI looks like it wants to curl up under below 36. Not bullish. This is the worst chart that I'm looking at. Not it doesn't feel like quantum wants to be a part of whatever's coming next. So yeah, that was kind of that's what I'm looking at. Look, defensive liquidity seems to be weakening. So I mean, not liquidity, but the rush to dollars and crypto or stablecoins seems to be cooling off, and the infrastructure looks really strong. So it feels like risk wants to come back. That's what it looks like to me. That's what the charts are telling me. The future economy is being built in real time. Most people won't recognize it until the opportunity is already behind them. Subscribe so you don't miss out on the next Market Forge. Stay patient, stay observant, and stay ahead of consensus.